morning. Again, today we're going to discuss in 145 the power tools and hand tools. Now, for those that have worked around power tools and hand tools all your life, you probably don't have a problem with this, but please pay attention because every tool is a little different and maybe you'll learn something. The hand tools that we're talking about right now is normally known as a jack plane or a smooth plane, depending on the size of it. All right, you're going to learn how to use that. Most of you probably have worked with the hacksaw correctly. That's another question, but we're going to show you how to do it properly. The back saw, for those that are doing home trim and stuff like this, or just cutting off little stuff at home. Then we have two circular saws. These are the hand circular saws. Now these may change depending on how long they last, but we're going to just show you a general outline of each element, and then from there you're going to have to take it from your perspective as far as if you need to, if there's a different saw here at some time. All of them basically work the same way, so just take that into consideration. All right, now typically we're going to work outside. Not necessarily, it just depends on the crowd in the classroom at the time. We have our workbench out here. You're going to need to have a C-clamp. All right, the C-clamps are found over by the tool crib over here on this side of the classroom. A tape measure, some sort of device that will draw you a line. Typically I just use the carpenter square, it's just as easy. And then scrap wood. Now we got plenty of scrap wood around here, so please use it all up, all right? But again, safety is our #1 concern right now. All right, again, if you're working out here, have your safety glasses, have your earplugs. If you do not have earplugs, we do have them. And if you want a dust mask, we also have those available too. Now, this being a smooth block or smooth plane, as I've told you or you've read in the books before, there's a block plane, which is a small one, a smooth plane, and then the jack plane that is much larger. Now, these are pretty handy if you're just trying to do trim work and kind of, you don't have to pull out the saw or you don't have to sit there and sand forever. But these are very nice tools, all right? So be careful of these. One thing about this is whenever you store this tool, all right, be sure that this blade is put away, and you just adjust it by taking the thumb screw and pulling it up a little bit, all right? Just to get it up out of the way there. Then you take your adjustment screw, and just move it forward. And that moves the blade back and out of the way. And then just be sure that you retighten it. Whoops. Slide that up and tighten it down so that the blade doesn't come out. All right? And it's hidden, so there's no accidents. All right? Also, when you put this away, be sure that you put it on its side and not its face. Now, there's always arguments about this, all right, but you always want to keep this smooth. Never get it roughed up, and there's a lot of stuff. See, just like the sand here, cement sand, all right, that can screw it up as well. So just be sure that your face is smooth, okay? And if there's a problem with any tool, come on in here and let me know about it and we'll fix it. All right, so let's get back to adjustment. You gotta take the thumb screw, and then now you're gonna move this back, the adjusting wheel, the depth gauge actually, all right, until that blade starts to come out of the face, all right? Tighten it down so it doesn't move on you, and then take your angle adjustment and move it until you get as much equal space on both sides. All right? Now you only want a small amount of blade sticking out of there. Now it may take you 3 or 4 times to get this adjusted, all right, but don't worry about that. The other thing is you're going to shave a piece of pine. Don't try to do plywood with this. Get some scrap pine or oak or whatever we may have in the scrap bin and do it. It's much easier, all right? Now, when you go to do this, you can get a feel for how much you're cutting off by just looking at what you're shaving. Now that's a little too much, okay? So I come back, I loosen it up again, I loosen it up again, and I back it off. Now, it's going to take a couple times to get used to this, because one adjustment affects another one. But once you get it there, it's pretty simple to work. Now, notice the difference on the depth of the blade. All right, it's barely there. So I should be able to get a decent cut out of this. So I just want to be sure everything's tight, finger tight. Don't have to sit there and take a pair of pliers or anything. All right, you hold the knob, come across, and you'll see how it's shaving it right off. Now the other question is am I going with the grain or against the grain? Well, in this case, you notice how the grain is chipping up this way, so going this direction is not going to be effective. So I come around, point it in the other direction, and I try to keep it balanced, all right? See how that wood starts to just peel right up? Then you know you're going in the right direction. Okay? And again, this is only to get you used to it. For those that have taken 146 or other classes in carpentry, you already know how to use this. But it's very effective, all right? Especially if for one reason or another you have to get a bevel or something is a little tweaked out of place, all right? Now you notice that sometimes you don't want to try to get a knot, and that's what I got right here. All right, I got a spur in this wood. All right, so it kind of skips over it sometimes. But don't, if you have a knot, turn the piece of wood over, okay? Because knots are really hard to try to plane, all right? This is just for really touch work, you know, like door frames or doors themselves. This is a great tool. You don't have to sit there and raise a bunch of dust. You know, doors swell, just kind of trim it down. Everything's okay. All right? There. Now again, every tool that you'll use, you'll blow off with the air hose. The air hose is right over here. You turn it on. Blow it off, all right? And then again, loosen the thumb screw enough so that you can adjust the blade and pull it in, okay? And then retighten it. The last thing you want to do is have that blade sticking out because it's razor sharp, all right? And somebody's going to grab it, and you know it. You know as well as I do, somebody's going to grab this and rip their finger wide open. So, for safety reasons, put it away properly, store it properly, and use it properly, and we'll all be much happier. All right, now we're back. We're going to work with the hacksaw. All right, now there's different versions out there, and I'm not going to sit there and waste your time or nor mine on how each one works, because I probably don't know. But we're going to cut EMT. Now for EMT, you got the pipe vise out here. Now I said pipe vise. You never, never, never put round stock in something flat. All right? Anybody that knows anything about physics knows that it isn't going to work. It's going to come right out on you. That's why a pipe vise, when you go to buy one, has this little configuration in there. All right? This is for smaller pipe down here, for larger pipe. This typically starts at about 1/2 inch. Put about, a foot of that extending out and tighten it down. Now, you do not have to sit there and jump on it, okay? Because your pipe's going to get bent. So, lock it in there. Be sure everything is secured so this isn't moving around on you. All right? Now, the blades. This particular type can cut 45-degree angles by setting the blade on these 2 pins right here. Or it can cut the 90-degree angle by setting it on these 2 pins. All right? And you can tell the difference, okay? This one works with a spring-activated system. All right? Counterclockwise loosens it up, takes the spring off of it to a point where the blade comes off. Now, understand about hacksaw blades. You want to try to use the whole length of a hacksaw. If you come up on a hacksaw and the paint is just gone in here, somebody isn't using it right. It should be removed from end to end as much as possible. The other thing is the teeth, all right, should always face forward. All right, always face forward. You're cutting on the push end of this thing, okay, as you're pushing it forward. Now, for simplicity, we're just going to go with the 90. All right. Now, what I've done is I hooked it on one end, and you notice how this is free, so it moves along. I connect it, I tighten it down. Now, how tight is tight? Well, if the blade breaks, you know you got it too tight. But you don't want any play in it, okay? You want to be sure that everything works on the hacksaw, okay? Now, once you do that, you need your gloves, your glasses, and if there's a lot of noise out here, your earplugs. All right, so we have our hacksaw. We have our gloves. And you know, I've been around long enough to work with equipment. I'm really starting to like these types of gloves, all right? You can get them at Home Depot, Ace. They have leather. They're good for air conditioning, folks. They're good for handcraft. Plus, you can still feel what you're working with, and it gives you a protection. All right, my glasses. Now, this is the hardest thing for people to understand. When your instructions tells you how much to cut off. For simplicity, we're just going off with anything that's there. But you notice that there's a curved end on this, all right? That's where your hand is wrapped around so your thumb has, it's like a pistol grip, all right? Put it around there. The other one is here. Now the problem with most people is, and I'm going to show you what most people end up doing, you have to have a flow of motion. If you're trying to force this, you're going to have all types of bending and tweaking going on and can't get anything accomplished, and then you start hammering it with a 10-pound hammer to get it off. The first thing that you need to do is your saw curve. Remember a saw curve? Back strokes. All right? Now that gives me a place to put my blade at. All right? Now from there, I want to keep equal pressure on it, okay? Because remember, I'm cutting in the forward stroke. Now, if I do not keep power on it, this is what happens. See, I start trying to push it forward. I need to have equal pressure on both my hands, all right? And I'm using the whole blade. All right? Now, just a word of advice for those that haven't worked around tools. If you touch this with your bare hands right now, it's going to hurt because it's hot. The same thing with the metal. All right? Even though we went slow, that metal has friction. Friction draws heat. So just be aware of that. But you notice that how I use the whole blade. All right? If you're doing this, all right, oh yeah, you're going to cut it. All right? But you're wasting a whole lot of energy. You'll be huffing and puffing by the time you have to do 20 or 30 of these things. All right? So just a common sense approach to it. All right? Always check the blade. Don't estimate or expect that the other student is going to know or been paying attention on where the blade goes. All right? When you're done, put your scrap back up underneath. The small scrap pieces, we'll show you where those go here later. Just set them aside. All right, now we're going to get into a few of the power tools. Now I like to work about mid-size, or midway here in the desk. All right, it gives me some room to move. I'm not cramped in there. You notice that I got my C-clamp. I'm giving myself plenty enough room. Read your instructions because it'll tell you exactly how many inches you're supposed to cut off. All right, and we're measuring those inches. So now I just want to check my pencil to be sure that it's nice and sharp. Here it isn't too important because it's a training environment, but you want to get used to be sure that your tools are ready to go. All right, fold away the blade. Now remember, I told you that there's a specific amount of inches that you're going to need to cut off. Pay attention to that. Okay, read the instructions. Right now we're just whacking off a piece about 6 inches long. All right, because I'm more concerned right now of showing you the tool than I am about the exact distance that you need to do that. You can figure that out. If you don't know how to read a tape measure, let us know. We'll help you out. All right, this is the DeWalt saw. We call it the lady saw. That's how it came here. Since we teach a lot of women the trades, they couldn't handle the larger one at first, so we wanted to get them used to it. But this is a fine saw, don't get me wrong. It's a fine saw. Now, check to be sure everything's functional. All right? Here on this side, I can adjust my angle. All right? All saws do the same thing. All right? I can move my saw any angle that I need to. All right? Notice that it has a little idiot symbol right there, and that is the mark in which you're trying to line up on your line, whatever the degree angle that you're trying to do. For this purpose right now, we're just doing the 90 degrees. We know that our guard works. The other thing we always want to be sure of is the depth of the blade. All right? Now, some people say that doesn't matter. It only matters when the other inch and a half of the blade goes through your leg. Then it becomes a problem. So for safety reasons, you pull up on the handle here, and you'll notice that the blade, let me see here, the blade moves up and down with the housing. And what I want is I just want about a tooth depth in this, and then I'm going to lock it in place. Now, what does that do for me? The RPMs are still going to be the same on the saw. But if I happen to get stupid or some accident occurs, I'm only going to get a 1/8 of an inch gap in my leg or my hand or whatever I decide to cut with. All right? The other way, I'm going to have a gash that, somebody's going to have to tie a tourniquet to. So be aware of that. When you're not using the saw, put it down on its side. All right? It protects the blade, protects everything. Everybody is good to go. All right? Now, your power source. Now, I don't know what it is, but these cords have a magical insight to themselves, and they wish to jump in front of the blade. All right? Try to prevent that as much as possible. Look where your cord is. All right? Pay attention, and you'll be okay. Over here, this little device is when carpenters are up on the roof or wherever they're playing and building, and this lays right into the 2x4. So it just hangs there. We don't use that. Your trigger, okay? Now, the important factor is paying attention to what side of the wood are you cutting off, all right? If this is my good wood, and in this case, this is my good wood, all right? This is my disposable wood. If I bring up my saw, you'll see where that line, and unfortunately this one's black, okay? But typically that, if you follow that line and line it up with that line or mark on the saw, you'll notice how the saw blade is on my dead wood or my waste wood, all right? Now the trick is trying to keep it there, all right? Some people start like this and then they just watch the blade from the side. It works, all right? But it's just a guide, okay? So we're trying to show you that. If I went and cut from the other side of this, I have my 1/8 of an inch blade on this side, and my wood would be 1/8 inch shorter. All right, so you really have to pay attention to that. All right. All right, so now I'm not wearing earplugs. I'm basically deaf as it is now. So, but if you need to, put them in for your own safety. Again, I recheck, so I have an idea where I'm at. Okay. I'm going to come up here and grab the top handle and the trigger. You notice how I'm away from my wood, all right? Don't ever start the wood or start the saw with the blade into the wood, all right? It's going to throw it up and you could be missing teeth, okay? So, pull away, hit the trigger, line up your guide with your line, and watch your blade. Now you notice how I moved all the way through this, all right? When I was cutting, taking my time, watching my blade, watching my mark, and I followed it all the way through. Do not stop in midpoint and try to make adjustments. Try to tweak it out. Once you start it, that's it, all right? Now, I've cut off my piece of wood. This piece of wood is the piece that I want it to the proper length, and I shouldn't have any problem fitting it in. All right? So now, doing the 90, I think your instructions tells you that you have to now do a 45 or some sort of an angle. For this training purpose, we'll just make it 30. All right, there's my mark. All right. Now, if this was precision woodworking, I'd check that with a gauge, okay? Since it isn't, we're just going with what's on the scale. And again, you notice how my body's getting tighter against this? Well, I'm in no rush here, okay? I want to be sure that I got it comfortable. If you're not comfortable doing something, mistakes start to happen. Again, it tells you how long or how wide the cut's going to be. For purposes of training right here, we're just making a mark. Now, you're dealing with an angle, all right? This is a little bit more complicated. If you notice that little V notch, Okay, here was your 90-degree mark. Here's your V-notch. All right. Now my V-notch, if I stay on it, is going to cut right at that line. All right. So again, plug in your tool. Always recheck and recheck because you only got one time to cut it. All right. Pull back, start it up. Now, the thing about cutting bevel cuts on any type of wood other than a table saw, or with any other tool than the table saw, is that your body is playing a big role in this. So you got to kind of project and not force the tool. Most people that start cutting 45s, you'll see it bevels off. All right, they lose track of what they're trying to do because they're trying to force the tool around. All right, try not to do that. If you do it, that's okay. Redo it and try again. All right. The other thing that I failed to mention on that is, again, check your blade depth. All right, I had the proper blade depth. All right, but if you're doing 2x6s and stuff like that, 2x4s, they do change dramatically from a 90-degree to a 40.